I always thought I understood the boundaries of friendship until I met Amara. She wasn't the most glamorous woman in the room, but she had a way of making everyone feel seen. With her soft laugh, curious eyes, and the kind of silence that made you feel safe, she drew people in without trying. I was no exception. We met in college, thrown together during a group project. What started as convenience evolved into something deeper. She was my closest friend, the one I called at 2 a.m. when life felt like too much. Over the years, our friendship stayed steady, comforting, reliable, and warm. But for me, it changed. Slowly, the lines blurred. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was overthinking the way her smile lingered when we said goodbye, or how she always leaned in just a little closer when we talked. I let the warmth of her presence convince me that maybe, just maybe, she felt the same. One evening, we sat in her apartment, just the two of us, like always. A dim lamp cast a soft glow across her living room. We sipped wine, laughed about something trivial, and I watched her, really watched her, as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and smiled at me without knowing what it did to me. That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep it inside any longer. "Amara," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. "Have you ever thought about us being more than friends?" Her expression froze, then softened into something unreadable. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took another sip of wine, placing her glass down with practiced care. "I care about you," she said, her voice measured, gentle. "You're one of the most important people in my life. But I'm not sure I want to change that." My heart sank, but I kept my tone light. "I'm not trying to pressure you. I just felt like there's been something between us. Maybe I misread it." She reached out, her fingers brushing mine. "It's not that I don't feel something. I just don't know if I can give you what you're looking for. I need time and space." I nodded, pretending to understand. But inside, everything felt hollow. Later that night, walking home beneath a pale sky, the words replayed in my head. Time and space. What did that even mean? If she felt something, why not explore it? Why hesitate? By the time I reached my apartment, I was consumed by a single thought. Maybe she was just scared. Maybe she needed someone to show her that love doesn't have to be a risk. That's when the idea began to take shape, uninvited but irresistible. I would go to her house, not out of desperation, but out of hope. I had to see her again, to remind her of what we could be. Maybe then, she'd finally understand what I already knew. We were meant for more than this. The next morning, I woke up with a gnawing feeling I couldn't shake. I told myself it wasn't obsession, just clarity. I believed Amara needed time, yes. But more than that, she needed to see I wouldn't back down so easily. That I wasn't like the others who tiptoed around her uncertainty. She needed to feel the weight of what I felt, unfiltered, raw, real. So, I drove. Her neighborhood was still and quiet, the sun beginning to set behind the rooftops as I pulled up to her house. Her car was in the driveway, lights on. I sat in my car for a moment, rehearsing what I'd say. Maybe I'd pretend to be in the area. Maybe I'd just ask to talk. Something simple, nothing too intense. I walked up and knocked. No answer. I waited, knocked again. Still nothing. I pulled out my phone, typing a quick message. "Hey, I was nearby. Thought I'd stop by for a minute. Everything okay?" No reply. I stayed on the porch a little longer, listening to the quiet hum of the neighborhood. I should have left. Part of me knew that. But something held me there, some mixture of hope and unease. Then I saw it. Through a slight gap in the curtain, I caught a glimpse of movement. Shadows, 2 of them. One tall, unfamiliar. A man. Laughter drifted faintly through the glass. Not hers, his. I stepped back, startled. My stomach twisted. I walked back to my car, sat behind the wheel, but didn't start the engine. Instead, I just stared at the house. Minutes turned to half an hour. I kept checking my phone, expecting some explanation, a message, anything that would make sense of what I had just seen. But there was nothing. No ping, no alert, only silence. Part of me still hoped it wasn't what it looked like. But deep down, a darker truth settled in. She had lied to me. Not with her words, but with her hesitation, with her soft tones and vague promises. "I'm not ready." That's what she had said. But ready for who? Ready when? That laugh? It didn't sound like uncertainty. The man inside wasn't just a friend. I didn't need to hear their conversation to know what was happening. I felt it in my chest. Tight, bitter, suffocating. I left eventually, though I can't say how long I stayed. I remember the streetlights flickering on as I drove away, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. She had made her choice. And now, I had to make mine. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog I couldn't escape. I stopped messaging her, stopped calling. Every notification on my phone made my chest tighten, but it was never her. She had vanished from my world, from my life, as if that night never happened. But it had. I saw him. I saw them. The silence between us became louder than any argument ever could be. I thought that would be enough. That distance would somehow protect what was left of my pride. But unresolved. Emotions fester. They don't fade. They ferment. When her name popped up on my screen a week later, it felt like a spark in dry grass. "Hey, you okay? I've been meaning to reach out." That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just a casual check-in like we hadn't been standing on the edge of something real. I stared at the message for hours. Then I replied, "Can we talk?" We met the next evening at a quiet park we used to visit. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench beneath a tree, the fading light casting long shadows on the ground. She looked up and smiled, but I didn't return it. "You saw me," I said. "That night, I came by." Her smile faltered. "You were at my house?" "I knocked. You didn't answer, but I saw someone with you." A pause stretched between us. Her lips parted, but no words came out right away. Finally, she exhaled slowly. "That was Jordan. He's an old friend, just passing through." "Just a friend?" I asked, my voice flat. "Yes," she said, but her eyes didn't meet mine. I wasn't convinced. "You told me you weren't ready, that you needed space. But the same night you were sharing wine and laughter with someone else?" She looked hurt. "I didn't owe you an explanation. We were never in a relationship." Her words cut deep, not because they weren't true, but because they were. "I never played with your feelings," she added. "I cared about you, but you made assumptions about what that meant." I looked away, swallowing the anger rising in my throat. "So that's it? I imagined it all?" "No," she said gently. "But love, when it's one-sided, can look a lot like betrayal." We sat in silence, the kind that closes doors, the kind that says everything is already broken. When I stood up, she didn't stop me. I didn't expect her to. That was the last time I saw Amara. I walked away not just from her, but from the illusion I had clung to for so long. Still, one thought kept echoing in my mind. Did she ever care at all? Or was I just a placeholder for someone else? Weeks passed, but Amara's absence remained like an echo, subtle, constant, and cruelly familiar. I stopped going by places that reminded me of her, the bookstore on 9th Street, the cafe where she always ordered peppermint tea, even the park, where we last spoke became off-limits. I thought if I could erase the physical reminders, the emotional ones would fade too. But grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet tug in the chest when you hear a familiar laugh, or the involuntary smile when you see someone wear a color she used to love. I didn't hate her. That would have been easier. Instead, I resented the version of myself that let hope stretch beyond reason. I replayed everything, Every conversation, every subtle glance, every moment I mistook comfort for connection. I kept asking, was it all in my head? Or worse, did she know all along and choose not to stop me? The hardest truth I had to accept was that love, real as it feels, doesn't always mean it's shared. And maybe she did care, in her own way, on her own terms. But it wasn't the kind of care I needed, not the kind that chooses you back. One rainy evening, I sat alone on my balcony, watching water race down the glass. I finally opened the draft message I had written but never sent. It was raw, honest, unfinished. I wish you'd just told me the truth even if it hurt. I deleted it. What would be the point? Closure doesn't always come from the other person. Sometimes you give it to yourself. That night, I wrote something else, just for me. I wanted her to sleep next to me, to see me the way I saw her. But she didn't. And maybe that's okay. Because wanting someone doesn't mean they're yours to keep. And love, real love, should never have to beg to be returned. The moment I finished, I felt something shift. Not peace exactly, but a kind of release. Like exhaling after holding your breath too long. I wasn't the victim of betrayal anymore. I was simply someone who loved deeply, and perhaps misplaced that love. There was no shame in that, only a lesson I now carried forward. The story of Amara and me didn't end in grand heartbreak or revenge. It ended quietly in the spaces between what was said and what was felt. In the realization that not all stories are meant to bloom. Some are just meant to teach you how to grow. As I closed my journal, I realized something important. I was still whole, bruised, yes, but healing. And somewhere out there, love might still be waiting. But this time, I wouldn't chase it. I'd wait for it to arrive and stay.